there's so much that happened on tour that we never really got to explain to you guys. And even when we started our van life podcast, it was probably too late, if we're being honest. Yes. But this is going to be our time during the off season when there's not a whole lot of new content to come at you, and we're running out of ideas as it already is. We're going to be looking back at what we went through on tour. So as this is the first episode, and probably no one's going to watch it, and this is going to be the worst episode out of all of them with the format, we're going to talk about Las Vegas Challenge. If you guys have been following us for a while, which probably haven't because we had less than 1,000 subscribers before we went to or just over 1,000 when we went to LVC, weren't even making videos like we did. We just had a podcast with Swiss, Jesus, and I. For some reason, I feel like we had like a lot of talks going on where we needed to be at Vegas. Like for some reason, we were like, if we're going to be a big deal and we're going to be someone, we need to be at the first event of the year. Does that sound kind of...
Yeah, man, I think it was more so like we kind of viewed this whole year being the all-in year, right? So I think we kind of established that. Part of that, like, all-in was living the dream of what most disc golf fans do, and that's like following the tour, right? Everybody would love to do that. At the moment that we were talking about doing a tour, it was kind of like, well, how are you not at the first event, right? So like it was kind of like, we're going to do this tour, but we don't kick it off with the first event.
Which ended up being cool because that was like our only opportunity to go on the DGPT as they just kicked it off. So, hey, we got to go to Las Vegas, possibly on tour.
Yeah, no way, shape, or form was this ever a Vegas trip.
Nah.
So as small as we were, it was still all work.
Yeah, I flew out my buddy Drew. Editor Drew has still yet to edit a single video on any channel. However, he was there because he was a must. And when I say he was a must, behind the scenes making videos, we got that shit on lock, as you guys have probably seen. But when it comes to actually interacting with some people, we're bad with the icebreakers.
We're introverts. Yeah. Natural introverts.
You come up to us, you talk to us, we're there. We're talking. But we're not going to go up to people we don't know or anything like that.
Especially when we only had 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah, we were nobodies. However, Drew doesn't have that problem. Drew will talk to anybody about anything. Actually ended up caddying for Conor O'Reilly day 2 because he talked about shoes.
Just talking about kicks.
That's just what Drew does. He finds himself in situations. But before we get into the actual tournament, Drew kicked it off straight away. We got there. I sent an email to the DGPT trying to get media passes, get some exclusive footage or whatever. More importantly, we wouldn't have to pay to get into the event, and it was $100 to get in, so that would have been had to pay by all of us. So we really wanted to make sure we didn't have to do that. So Drew and I found where the media section was, and Drew, I'll be honest, Drew took lead in this one. Shout out Drew. Found his way into the head of the media area, got her name to have a conversation with the head of the media, and got denied to our face that we could not get media passes.
I think I just bought a ticket and just started recording is what while you guys were working on that.
And Drew and I were waiting at this table because we said some guy was going to come talk to us after a while. We were sitting, waiting, which actually was cool because we met homie Chris, who is a camera guy for pdga DGPT. We met him, told us his story, and you'll catch him later on in the story if you continue to watch this. So there's a reason to continue watching these shitty episodes. But we met him, talked to him, got denied. That's the beginning of the disc golf world, if you want to call it, was event number 1, getting denied media.
Great of a story as that is, I think the truer, more introduction to what this trip was going to be was the Airbnb that we showed up in, which was kind of like a converted like garage / shed that was behind a house. And there's 3 of us, right? So Swiss got the futon, Jay and Drew got the bed. That was my more introduction into it. So here we are, we're 1,000 subscribers, kicking off what is our all-in moment season at DGBT in a tiny Airbnb, just roughing it and trying to get our way into the DGBT or following on the tour. It was also cool because it was really pretty engaging fan base. You know what I mean? As far as everybody's there and everyone's local or semi-local, and people are also flying in. So it's kind of cool on that. And like getting to know like cameramen and some of the volunteers, like the volunteers were all flying in for this event to kind of go to.
Other parts about LVC that we got to experience, a part of the culture, if you want to call it. Drew, big disc collector, big disc fan. I think he stood in line for, this sounds exaggerated, but I'm pretty sure he stood in line for like 8 hours for the Sexton Firebird.
Dude, he got there so
early. He was like one of
like 5th in line or something.
So we do still have one of the LVC Firebirds from that year.
It got up to the point where like Drew was waiting there while the round was still going.
way early.
Now the round's over. It's about to pour. It's raining out. People are clearing out. But we aren't going anywhere because Drew's in line.
Yeah, so we're still chilling.
So we're there until him getting in there. And because of all that, like the weather and all that, the line really wasn't that bad. So it got to the point where I was like, Jay, you want to just get in line?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, we're here waiting. We might as well just kind of try. And we got in line ourselves.
So while we were waiting in line too, we were still waiting in line for hours, right?
Yeah.
I saw Terry Miller.
Yeah.
We saw pros waiting in line. So I went up to Mr. Terry Bear himself because, funny enough, my friend, who is a police officer for Milwaukee, pulled over Mr. Terry Miller on his way back from a Smash Box episode, and they had a little conversation about disc golf. So I wanted to introduce myself officially, even though I've been around him, known him since I've been 17 years old, around playing the courses that he's designed and the tournament director that he been. So I thought that it'd be cool if I actually got can make that connection. So that was a cool little thing that happened in the line at LVC.
What was cooler was what Drew was able to accomplish.
Yeah, that's what I was transitioning to.
That was the best story.
The line started to go, and Drew's one of the first people to get it out.
We knew what the discs were,
Yeah.
but we didn't know if it was like a giveaway, a purchase. We just got in the line because it was small.
Yeah,
this is our first time at LVC.
We get in the line.
Yeah. Anyway, so Drew comes back. He's got a Sexton. He's got a Toro. Got his selection of stamps. That was the best part about being in line, was the selection of stamps and the selections of colors, being the first to pick. So we finally like, hey man, what's it cost? Because like people in line are informing us, oh, it costs this, it's this.
But no one really knows.
Yeah, like nothing's confirmed, especially when it's like torrential rain. It's like, man, just throw these this. Come on.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, Drew comes back and he's like, nah, they're free. They're free.
Got one for free.
Yeah.
Like, super excited.
So like Drew, the type of dude that he is, evidently can pick out that. And like, dude, this is like a conveyor belt of systems, right? You're walking up to bins of these Sextons and selecting them. And then there's people coming behind you. So, and then there's another section for the Toros, and there's people so there's people all over the place. And Drew just grabbed his disc, unknowingly just walked off.
Yeah.
Just assuming that they were free.
When you look at it too, I'm sure it's a super, like a system that the workers know what's going on. But when you just shove people that have no idea what the work is, where you're paying, where to go, telling people go here, there,
especially
get
like, man, those front people, I can only imagine those dudes are like throwing bows at each other and stuff, like trying to get the creme of the creme.
Got his Sexton Firebird and Calvin Heimberg Toro for free.
Yep.
And comes back in the line ecstatic, and he absolutely made the day of the woman standing behind us. When she found out that they were free, oh my God, she was happy.
Little did she know.
Yeah.
That would be.
I hope that she just thought they were free and walked out and did the Drew.
Unlike Drew, we had to pay, which I think it was $50 per disc.
Right away, the next day, we had Swiss made a sign on a cardboard on his bag, and then we ended up selling it.
Yeah, dude, I did like the stadium style of like made a cardboard sign and said, I got a Sexton Firebird. Hit me up. And I also want to say, as far as that stop goes, this will go for every stop. Far more difficult than the camera lose. And I understand I was there to kind of think like, oh yeah, this is somewhat fairly boring. As far as what it plays in person, far more impressive, far more difficult than it truly like plays on it. But that goes for every stop.
Yeah, it's always
like,
how it is.
That's every stop. Most of the people that complain on that course or run their mouths as far as what they could do on it, they couldn't do.
Going into the tournament side of Vegas, our days basically were wake up, Uber, get to this course, last people off the course. We're watching FPO from the first card to the last MPO card, I believe. So that was what our days were made up of, and it was trying to get as many shorts or many clips of pros getting as possible. Now, why we were doing that, I don't know if there was ever like a reason. We just felt as if we were going to be somewhere that you had to be like doing something. It wasn't just to like watch, right? Like we had hella clips, but like
initially, like I always dreamed of doing like what we called behind the ropes, where it was just fan shots from the fan perspectives. For me, I was like, hey, let's just do it behind the ropes and get shots. As far as like my mindset, it was like, all right, where can I get shots? How can I get lined up? And constantly pushing the limits that you're allowed to in those arenas, especially on those early days where you can get close to the action and push it. And by the later one, if you do it enough early, they'll accept you more later when they're being stricter.
Especially when you show that you're being respectful. There's still always like, you're getting space between you and the pros. It's never messing the pros out. You're never like when people
we're
mess
never
up,
those guys.
Yeah, bro. No, we're never.
We're never
talking
those
to anybody.
guys.
We're never like.
There's those guys that are trying to talk to the pros.
Making jokes, stuff like nah, don't be that guy. Bro.
We still definitely have gaps. We're allowing them free reign. We're not in a way of any way, shape, or form. But establishing ourselves like at a spot, usually most people like open up to allow us to film.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I think one of the goals going into Vegas was we had success with a video that was all like 30 plus pros playing hole one at Worlds, and that video got like 200K, and we posted another one that got over 100K. So I think going in Vegas, that was our goal, was try to find what hole we can record and replicate this video and see if the results speak for themselves. I think and that's why when Swiss and I watch disc golf, it's never like normal spectators, I would say. It's never we're going from one card from stop to finish. We are bouncing from hole to hole to hole to see as many pros, get as many clips from pros, to get as much coverage of our eyes as possible. We're texting each other what holes we're at, where we're meeting, where the crossover is, and trying to figure out what hole we could record the best. And I think at one point we were watching the island hole. We've been having this process since like 2019 Worlds.
A1 is like establishing yourself, because granted we're here for the first time, we're on these course layouts, and we know I'm on television, but as far as like the pathways and walking, where you can cut throughs,
what's roped off, where you can't go, so we're gonna get yelled at for going.
Exactly. So that's why like usually day one we try to get there at the start, because it's as much as familiarizing yourself with the structure to get the lay of the land, where you can post up, what shots are good, what angles you are. And also what's most important that I think a lot of people don't realize, even on like the long holes, it's also viewing where those discs are going to land to put yourself in a good shot, either in front or semi behind, where you can line up those shots. So it's not like just sitting on it like a par 3 on the tee and just watching them hit the green. Like those are great, and there's a place for those, but it's like constantly it's every hole and be like, okay, this disc lands here.
That's what people don't understand too, is there's a whole different perspective of watching disc golf and trying to get videos of disc golf, because you have to keep in mind of where camera people are going to be, where spectators are going to be, how someone's going to follow through with the shot. And it's so much harder when you're not the main people. When we are not the guys that have full access and have our clear view, when we're trying to work around the other obstacles that have clear views, it makes it 10 times harder. So putting yourself in the right position off the gate and off the jump is super crucial.
Those first 2 days are just like getting that stored and that memory of it, and like where to go, where to cut. And we even talk, like as we're walking through it, sometimes we're together, some portions we're not, but we literally talk through it. Okay, on the final day, one's going to be here, the other one cuts in front, this one goes behind, and like we kind of do no different than the cameramen's on the coverage do. Like usually there's a back end guy and a front guy, and then they switch.
Walkie-talkie.
And they're rotating through. Now with LVC, because it's a 4-day, after you have that established kind of on those the first two, then that like third day is more so, or like whatever that middle day is, who do we think is going to be well, and what cards have like the best cards, right? To get like the most premier players, to where we can follow some of them. Hey, these guys are on at 10 a.m. We'll follow them through hole 6, break off, and then we're going to catch the lead. Don't get me wrong. I understand we look like the type of guys that are just flying by the seat of our pants. There is plenty of times we do, but
that's our best stuff.
When it comes to tournaments and like viewership, we're pretty on as far as like where we're going, what we're doing, how we end up. And especially like when no matter what, you're always looking at like 18, where everyone's going to finish, and be like, okay, where do we need to be? Where are we going to not get cut off?
Vegas for me was the first time I was trying to build like social media clip style videos, and I was trying to push more personalizing it with pros. I was trying to build connections with pros that I could hopefully work with future, because we obviously knew we were going to be on tour eventually.
We did some banger highlight videos.
Yes, that's where I want to go to next. Is we had made some connections through, and what, like I said, so at the beginning of this video, Swiss and I don't bad at icebreakers, but what we're really good at is making good content and having people realize we make good content, and then respecting it through there. So one of the first ones I think we did was Luke Sampson. We had a collab video with, we had Robert Burridge, we had Paige Shue. All of these we just made highlights and said, hey, this is what we did. If you wanted to share it, it'd be cool. A lot of these connections start from Vegas and start with nothing. And somehow, since we created this, work into bigger connections and bigger projects later down the road. So that was our reason to going into Vegas, was establishing Disc Golf World as somebody and creating connections and putting out what we knew we could do for the future. Because we knew we weren't going to be able to do any of the beginning half of tour. I still had college, Swish had a job, but we knew come August we were going to be on the road full time.
We say it all the time. We would not have been able to accomplish it with anything that we did prior, including this trip.
Well, even when you talk about next episode, we're going to talk about Champions Cup, which was my next stretch. I wouldn't have been able to go to Champions Cup or have that opportunity if it wasn't for the highlight tapes and Drew Gibson liking what he saw and wanting to post on his Instagram and then creating that connection through there to then have the opportunity to be his caddy for Champions Cup and making the connections I had there that, again, work with for the rest of the season. Like I say, everything that we do had a purpose, and everything that we do has a story that pushes everything along for the grand scheme of the disc golf world. And we're trying to highlight that here because it's kind of crazy when you say it out loud, and we want to hear you guys have the opportunity to hear it, bro.
And if it wasn't for like that trip, you know what I mean, there wouldn't have been Twig. There wouldn't have been cool, like, hey, I went on that trip. I really enjoyed what we made. I enjoyed what we did. What can I do else? You know what I mean? Where can we build this and grow?
That's what Las Vegas challenge did for us. That was the beginning of everything and what was to occur for the rest of the 2023 season. But that was the beginning. That was stop number 1. That was LVC. But tune in next week where the next stop was Champions Cup, and I got a caddy for Drew Gibson. So I'll break down that whole experience. I'll break that down all next week, so hopefully you can tune in there. See you then.